a dangerous city, that Gotham. Tell you, I was thinking about taking a vacation there recently, but then I thought there's no way that I could possibly trust all those goons and their guns, and it's a dangerous place, and I have small children, and I don't want to take that chance. So I don't really like Gotham. I tell you who is doing his best to clean it up, and that's Batman. We're here to talk about Batman today on the Boob Tube Boys. I'm Spencer Hendricks. I'm hosting. Got a couple people who are going to talk about Batman with me. Van Lee, Batman.
First and foremost, I want to say it's really ice that you've invited me onto the show. I'm happy to be here.
Are you a Freeze fan? Is that what I'm picking up from you here?
I pretty much am Dr. Freeze. I'm always cold, but in a way that when I touch other people or people touch me, I'm cold. I'm burning up on the inside.
Does that mean that you're a passionate person?
No, it just means I'm hot.
He's literally hot on the inside. Brian Vaughn, Batman.
Oh, it is I, Brian Vaughn, the media analyzer. One of Batman's premier villains.
Look at his costume, Spencer. Describe it to the audience.
It's just the Matthew Lesko suit. It's just a suit with question marks on it.
Do you think anyone out there knows who Matthew Lesko is other than us? Surely.
I don't. I don't know who Matthew Lesko is.
So Matthew Lesko was a guy who came on infomercials at like 2 a.m. when we were all kids.
In the 90s.
Like the Billy Mays guy?
Kind of like the Billy Mays guy.
But he was selling a book, I think it was, saying how you should make money.
He was selling the idea of government grants.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, that's sexy.
He was just a grifter, but he had like a Riddler costume on. It was a green suit. I can see it in my mind's eye, plain as day, with little question marks all over it. It was wonderful.
And this is not accurate, but my child's eye remembers him looking like, what I will say, a wimpier Christoph Waltz. I don't know. That's what I remember him looking like.
Okay. I think I can get behind that.
It's probably not correct. I recently encountered a copy of Muzzy, the language learning animal monster software or tapes or something from our childhood, and that did look like I remembered.
But it had like friends.
Yeah, they were creepy too. Little fuzzballs.
I have to do up top here a quick Boob Tube Boys callback and say the line that you just read for this guy reminded me of the Bible Bowl episode and the cheat. A little bit of that.
Oh, the cheater, yeah.
The cheater. I don't remember what his name is. The cheat was a character in Homestar Runner, I believe.
He was, the chord.
Yeah, that's what Coach Z called him, right? Yeah, so I was picturing that the whole time. Do you guys think Batman could handle the cheater?
Eventually.
Eventually.
He would be pretty annoyed before he finally took him down.
Well, I think it would be more a case of Batman saying, like, this is not worth my time. But then he gets pestered enough to do it, because if Bible Man can handle it, I think Batman can handle it.
We'll be able to draw that conclusion by the end of these 2 episodes that we're going to be doing. Because, of course, on Boob Tube Boys, we pick a show and we introduce it, which we're about to do. And then we cover the first episode, and then we come back next week and we do another episode. So we've got 2 coming up for you. And I think we're going to have a pretty good idea of what Batman can and can't do, and what Bible Man can and can't do is something we've already determined. So we can make that decision at that point and decide whether the cheater would be too much for him or not. Real quickly up top, the show itself is Batman Beyond. I didn't know anything about this show myself coming in, probably because it was kind of engineered to be a kid's show, and it is an animated series. There were several animated Batman shows around this time period, a little before, and this is kind of considered the sequel to both of them. It was created by Paul Dini, Bruce Timm with 2 M's.
Yeah, it's too many first names.
Yeah,
Paul Dini, Bruce
name,
Timm.
all the way around.
That sounds like you're just listing possible names of an old man.
And Alan Burnett is our third guy.
He's only got 1 first name.
It's produced by Warner Brothers, of course. They got their fingerprints all over this thing.
Later threw a no-hitter for the Marlins.
I did think about that just now.
The Bugs Bunny thing at the beginning of the episode really took me back, where he's chomping on his carrot, and there's that water tower. What is that?
I don't know.
It's where he lives, and it's where all the Warner
Bugs
Brothers
Bunny?
live.
He lives in a water tower?
Yeah, he lives in him and his carrot supply, and Jack Warner is in there too. His body is entombed in it.
Well, actually, I believe Yakko, Wacko, and Dot live in the tower from the Animaniacs.
Didn't get the reference.
I don't know if that show's actually good or not. I loved it when I was a kid.
Yeah, I liked it. I was not as pro Animaniacs as some of my child friends.
Some of my peers.
Some of my
childhood.
peers. Yeah, I was more pro The Firm and Jurassic Park.
You know, the Jurassic Park one actually makes sense a little bit.
Well, I was a little bit of an early adopter, though, as someone who had read the book before the movie, like a how should I put this? A loser.
Well, no, you were just like, okay, I want to see this movie because I like the concept and the characters and the themes. Whereas the rest of us children were like, dinosaurs.
Well, why do you think I read that book, though?
Okay, yeah.
On the cover, there is what? A big dinosaur head. You couldn't keep me away from two things as a young child, a zoo book or a book with a dinosaur on it.
You know, Jurassic Park has something in common with this first episode we're talking about this week.
Do tell.
I didn't think this would happen, but I can tie it in where they extracted the DNA from the dinosaurs.
Oh, that's true.
That's how I don't know the exact way Michael Crichton decided it worked, but something with getting the DNA from, was it a fossil or an egg or
I
something?
think it was a mosquito.
Mosquito, yeah. And then they end up, I don't know the rest.
Breed it with frogs.
Something like that. They needed the DNA, just like they took Freeze's DNA in this one.
It is really genius in Jurassic Park how to get around explaining it. They're like, we'll show the characters a video. And it has like
That's
a dancing mosquito that talks like this.
And like Jeff Goldblum is like whatever, and he gets up and leaves.
Jeff Goldblum, man,
Good man.
he's so good.
He's such a good man that I would not mind having a pillow with his face on it.
One of us does have that.
I wanted to bring that up on the show at some point.
That was it hit me below the melt because ice, snow, and it melts.
Oh, you're keeping up with your
Good. I like
cold
that.
gimmick. That's
This is
good.
a pun.
So Batman Beyond began airing in January of 99 when the three of us were early in our teens still.
Sort of what was considered the beyond of time when, we're
yes.
about to turn into the new millennium.
I'm assuming you guys were like me in that you would have considered yourself too old for the show when it aired.
Oh, yeah.
I thought so.
Now, the original Batman
The animated series.
Yes,
Yeah.
that one I was all about. I watched all of it. I loved it.
And that stars Luke Skywalker.
Yes, Mark Hamill plays the Joker. He does a good job.
And actually Kevin Conroy was the Batman voice in that.
Yes.
And then is retaining his role as Bruce Wayne in this, although too old to be Batman anymore.
Recently died, that Kevin.
A couple years
that
ago,
guy.
yeah.
Mhm.
Not long ago. So it originally aired on Kids WB. It ended in December 2001 because of the Justice League. It was going to be too big of a deal. And they're like, we don't want to.
They shut it down. The Justice League characters, they came in and
Yeah.
they said, no more producing this show.
Look at me. I'm Aquaman, and what I say goes.
I'm glad you thought of one.
Here's the thing is I know so little about even Batman, who I don't mind personally. I mean,
He and I get along.
I don't mind Batman, but I mean,
We hang out socially.
even Batman, I don't know much about. So there's going to be a lot of ignorant statements being made by me and possibly by Van and Brian as well.
I think you can assume that, yes.
That is sort of par for the course a little bit.
When it concerns IP entertainment specifically, I don't have a lot of reverence.
This particular show, Batman Beyond, is a teenage Batman mentored by an elderly Bruce Wayne in a futuristic Gotham.
Elderly Bruce Wayne, but a buff-ass Bruce Wayne. This is an old man who lifts buildings.
After being Batman for so long, I would imagine he would retain some of his training as an old man.
But he is broken down. He's got a cane
Inside.
that he holds weird.
He's mean, too.
He's pretty mean.
Well, at least I think. Well, he's gruff.
Crotchety.
He's not mean. He's just gruff. As I mentioned, this was a sequel to two other animation series, Batman the Animated Series, which Van apparently loved as a young child, and then the new Batman Adventures as well. This was kind of
Did
the...
you say nude Batman?
Yeah.
Pretty hot. He still wears the cowl.
They obviously had to discontinue that one because, I mean, he lost a lot. The suit is a big part of his thing.
This was the closing storyline of the three, and it actually initially drew kind of lukewarm reception, but has developed into a kind of a cult following sort of situation in the years since then. Although it was intended as a kid's series, the tone, and I'm sure you guys picked up on this, actually was strangely dark at times.
Yeah, it toes that line where you can clearly see it's really trying to put the story out for the kids, but then it's like the topic is a quote heavy one that they try to handle.
So it wasn't exactly a huge draw in terms of ratings, but it was nominated for 4 Daytime Emmy Awards, which really seems like a backhanded sort of award to create. But it won 2 times in 99 and 2001. Once for Outstanding Special Class Animated Program.
If there are that many words in your award, it's a bad award.
I would be so insulted if someone gave me that. Would you like a Daytime Emmy, Outstanding Special Class Animated Program Award? Yeah, but they won that in 99. And then in 2001, Outstanding Music Direction and Composition.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what was up against it? Just a sound of an animal farting into a tube?
Realistically, I guess it would have been soap operas.
Right up top, I'll say the music in this show is horrible. It sounds like the WWF No Mercy lobby music for Nintendo 64.
The music probably is trying to make up for the tone was too dark at times. The music definitely sounds like a kid's show.
But no, I think it's trying to be dark.
I agree with Brian. What I think is the case is if you blindfolded me and you sat me down and said, I'm going to put on an episode, it's a short one, it's a half-hour episode of Bones, and then you played the soundtrack from Batman Beyond, I would go, okay, I believe you, this is Bones. It's that edgy 2000s that just doesn't land anymore.
Yeah, it sounds like a 50-year-old man saying, this is cool, isn't it? Another comparison. The music that Slade Craven's band plays when he's not on stage.
When he's like strutting, walking to something, they play that.
Which is a lot. He does that a lot.
Well, anyway, it won an award in 2001 for that music. So
good for them.
We should give credit where credit's due.
Well, that was the same year as 9/11, so...
It was also nominated for 5 Annie Awards, and it won 2. And 99 and 2001, those were its big years. Its first and last years, as it turns out.
What is an Annie Award?
I don't know.
Oh,
I didn't look that up.
Assume.
Oh, it's a cute little, I get it.
Well, that'd be cool.
Redheaded girl.
I don't know. I didn't figure we were meant to know. So I just kind of surface level research and left it. Man isn't meant
to know everything, and that's one of the things.
IGN.com, the great IGN.com, named it the 40th best animated show ever in 2009.
Top 40, huh?
Seems lofty.
I wonder what number 35 was.
We should just look at that whole list sometime. Some of the cast members that we'll be coming across in these episodes, the 2 main ones, someone named Will Friedle is Terry McGinnis. He was in Boy Meets World. And
he was the best friend.
That's like it. Will Friedle didn't do a whole lot. And kind of hard. I'm not saying Christian Bale was perfect as the Batman voice, but it's hard to hear that as Batman and then hear Will Friedle as Batman in these. I know he's a teenage Batman, but it's a little weird. It's a stark contrast.
Makes you wonder about the idea of teen Batman. And Batman is something of a libertarian vigilante, so it's weird for like a child to be that.
Well, he's got an old man telling him what to do.
Exactly. I figure initially he just has the enthusiasm to help clean up crime, and Bruce Wayne's like, here's what you're doing this for, son. Like, he's just putting all this in his ear all the while.
Yeah, the thing I'm saying also is more of a larger problem I've begun to develop with the world of Batman, in which every street peasant is a criminal and all the rich people solve it.
That is true.
But, solve it physically. Also, by
the best way
beating
to solve
up
the thing.
people.
Yeah.
Well, that way they retain their richness.
And then Kevin Conroy, as he talked about, is Bruce Wayne. He played Batman in the main series. He plays Bruce Wayne in this. Kevin Conroy, if you look at his credits on IMDb, did a whole bunch of Batman voices for video games and other animated
30
shows.
Years, basically. Do you need a Batman?
That guy was just Batman, period, for all of his career.
In the early 90s, if your name started Kevin things were going really well for you.
You were in Waterworld.
Yeah.
You were Batman.
You danced with some wolves.
Couple other people in the cast that we see little bits of in the 2 episodes we cover, but not much of. They're the main supporting characters in most of the episodes. Maxine Gibson, who goes by Max, is Terry's close friend, voiced by Cree Summer. And then I'm going to get into some of these actors, what they did when they come up in the episodes. We'll just go right through them for now. And Lauren Tom is Dana Tan. Dana is Terry's girlfriend, his big squeeze at the high school.
We've seen her before.
Yep, our second appearance of Lauren Tom.
And I will be talking about that
shortly.
Good. Frank Welker played Ace the dog. Ask me how, I don't know.
Interesting.
All I heard Ace do was bark, but Frank Welker did that.
You get old Frank riled up.
He's a prominent voice actor. He's done a ton of stuff, so it's interesting. They're like, well, let's just make him the dog.
Barbara Gordon, Commissioner Gordon, Jim Gordon's daughter, is played by 2 different people. The episode we got is Stockard Channing, and then in season 3, they switched over to Angie Harmon. That's the main cast. That's the main premise. Let's get into our first episode, which is season 1, episode 5, Meltdown. It aired on January 13th, 1999.
Van, do you have any cold or freezing related puns related to the episode title you'd like to offer?
Carpe diem.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
freeze
the day.
Oh,
yeah, it's great. So I read the synopsis when I introduced the show I was going to cover, but I'll do it again just to catch everyone up who may not have heard that. Meltdown is described as, for his own reasons, Derek Powers. The great villainous Derek Powers arranges for Mr. Freeze to have a new organic body, but things don't go according to plan.
Which on the surface, this does seem like a complicated gambit.
Scientifically, there's a lot going on here. Derek Powers, I'll briefly get into this, becomes a bad guy named Blight, which we see his origin, his birthing into a villain in this very episode.
How he becomes Blight.
He becomes Blight right in front of our eyes.
Both our episodes have multiple villains, and some of them it's like, who's this little fella? I don't know.
In many
it's
cases,
pretty
I
funny.
didn't know. Actually, I guess Blight is based off of Dr. Phosphorus from the comics, but I don't know who that is, and based on what you guys just did, you don't either.
No, but I wish I did.
I forgot how kid shows work. So like the darkness came across as like forced and trite, even though probably isn't for the targeted age range. And similarly, the pacing, because these are 20-minute episodes that are supposed to like wildly oscillate in terms of, you know, a character's actions and tone. It would be like a character has one opinion, one scene, the next scene, they're like, actually, never mind. And it just, because they have to do this whole story in 20 minutes. And like you said, Spencer, this is a character's origin story, and it's kind of, you know, part of the story in a 20-minute show.
So I actually put these on just as a preliminary watch where I couldn't pay 100% attention to it. And I didn't even know in that first viewing that the whole Blight character was introduced. I missed that.
How did he become a green glowy guy?
Oh, I don't think we know that in this episode, but he actually has a long backstory where he killed Terry McGinnis's dad in the show. I don't think we see that actual moment, but we learn that later. And then there was some kind of fight, and he got a bunch of kind of like the Two-Face thing. He got a bunch of toxic waste on him, although that was acid, I think, with Two-Face. And then he became what he is in this episode, which is held together by fake skin covering up what underneath is just a skeletal radioactive guy.
Yeah, he looks cooler that
He's
way.
glowy.
Much cooler. Two-Face, just to touch on him, that's like, so you're watching Matlock, right? Matlock's got the case fucking nailed, and he comes up with his thing at the last second with his folksy manner. Someone comes in who's mad at him and throws acid on his face. But only half of his face.
Yeah.
I don't know how. It's like a clean line, too. It's right down the middle.
I see one problem with this analogy. I don't think Matlock was ever the district attorney.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But then, of course, Matlock stumbles across a coin, and one half of the coin is scarred. I think it was a double-headed coin, so it's something special.
Things get fucked up after that, and that's why Matlock didn't go down in history as a good guy.
Real quickly, before we get into the actual episode, the 4 cast members that I want to talk about all have a special tie-in to Boob Tube Boys.
Ooh.
And I'm going to get into those real quick. Some of them we already mentioned briefly, and some of them I haven't gotten a chance to talk about yet. But in this episode, we meet Dr. Stephanie Lake. She is voiced by Linda Hamilton. You guys know the name at all?
Terminator 2.
Yeah.
There you go. Actually, I think Sarah Connor, so wasn't she in the first one too?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just Sarah Connor from Terminator is who Dr. Stephanie Lake is in this episode. And then we have Mr. Freeze. This one was a little tougher. It's a guy named Michael Ansara. All I know is that he played someone named Elfric from Babylon 5.
Oh.
Probably a guy with a bunch of ridges in his face.
Very loose
Or
tie-in.
vampire teeth.
But I want you to remember that when you talk about Mr. Freeze. It's from Babylon
I'll
5.
respect him a little more knowing that.
Derek Powers is probably the most interesting one. That's a guy named Sherman Howard, who was Roy in the Seinfeld episode with the Junior Mint.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
Where Elaine at first is attracted to him because he's lost a lot of weight and decides at the end she doesn't want to date him again after all. That is Mr. Powers. That's Derek. That's Blight. And then lastly, as you guys referenced, Dana Tan, Lauren Tom is the voice, and she was Julie, who is Ross's girlfriend and friends.
The one he sort of discards in one of the episodes we covered.
So yeah, where his origin story, where he becomes Blight.
Yeah.
Where he starts dating Rachel. He's with Lauren Tom at the beginning of that, and then is like, nah, I'm just going to go ahead and be with Rachel now.
You know what, though? I bet Ross has killed as many people as Max Powers or whatever his name
BTB
is.
lore, yeah.
That's pretty much the whole cast that we're going to see in this episode. There's not a lot going on beyond the characters we just talked about. We get their little intro, which is great. It's fantastic. It has the soundtrack that you'll remember forever.
Occasionally, just to kind of get the tone of the show down, it'll throw words across the screen like greed, apathy, corruption.
It's the funniest intro I think I've ever seen. It is so stupid. It's wonderful.
Oh, it's my favorite. It's actually made me reconsider. I think intros are really important.
This one did it for you? Yeah. At one point, there's just a big X and nothing else because X's are edgy, as Elon Musk knows.
Yeah, you beat me to it. What's the letter that'll really piss off the libs?
Someone shoots a playing card in it. Batman does a little jig. And also there's sexy cartoon people. And they dance for a while.
Sexy cartoon people. I guess I'll say it now. Dr. Stephanie Lake. Pretty hot.
Yeah, pretty hot. And the voice doesn't hurt either. Linda Hamilton.
Well, see, and I didn't even realize that. I hadn't even seen that. I was just thinking, here's this attractive, mean lady doctor.
She's so mean. I can't wait to talk about her because you start thinking maybe she's not all bad, and then she's real bad.
Yeah, she's so bad. And I knew it, too.
She broke Mr. Freeze's heart.
I know. And that's why his heart is frozen.
After that super cool intro that's the best we've covered in all 200 episodes of Boob Tube Boys, we get Batman, teenage Batman. That's always why I hated Spider-Man, by the way, is because it's a teenager. So, yeah, the teenage Batman thing is going to bother me throughout.
The teenage Batman.
Well, he's prancing about near a dock at night.
I'm just a teenage Batman, baby.
And it's in an industrial area, so we've got like cranes and construction equipment and
Girders.
real blue collar shit in the background.
I wanted to smoke a cigarette.
I did like the setting, and there's actually a few scenes that I kind of felt like they nailed the aesthetic a little bit. That's one of the things I would say good about
this.
The show.
Is where a showdown needs to happen at the end of a Street Hawk.
Oh yeah. That's
Norman
perfect.
might be, at his thing poking the computer, so that way something can happen that saves the hero.
If things are going to go right, you need Norman at the helm.
You need him poking.
We also see, of course, the famous large buildings of Gotham because it's a huge city with a cool skyline. And Gotham, dangerous big city Gotham. Is it supposed to be Chicago or is it New York? New York, okay. So Batman has, I guess it's just a Geiger counter, but it's fancy and futuristic.
Nerd.
And does a bunch of sizzling sounds. And I really have never heard this line before when he discovers that, yes, there's definitely something going on in this water. Let's hear what Teenage Batman has to say about this.
You hear that? You can poach an egg in this water.
I've never heard that in my life. I don't usually poach eggs in radioactive water or waste of any
or do
kind.
anything in it.
He didn't say boil, he said poach.
Poach. Anyway, he's talking to Bruce Wayne. He has a little handy radio visor thing that he can just connect to Bruce Wayne at any point because Bruce Wayne just sits in his cave, I guess, or
his ivory fucking tower.
the Wayne Manor. He just lives there by himself with Ace, the dog, and is constantly communicating with Terry.
You know who doesn't live there with him? His parents.
Or Alfred, for
Canonically.
that matter.
Oh, is Alfred gone?
That's true. We don't have an
old.
Alfred.
Oh, yeah.
Why didn't he get a replacement Alfred?
Yeah. If
Michael Caine was busy.
Van, if Alfred were to comment on the status of his livelihood, what might he say?
Well, on that day, Master Wayne, I will be dead.
That's good. I was hoping you would do that.
So we've got some little match from the Geiger counter saying, oh my God, this water's super radioactive. And Bruce says,
poach an egg in it.
You might. Bruce says, aha, well, that must be the exact spot where they're loading the waste before dumping it out at sea. Right on cue, a truck beeps behind Batman and drives
to do exactly that.
To that exact location right at this moment. Isn't that weird? A crew jumps out wearing protective radioactive gear and a nefarious-looking villain who's kind of the leader of the henchmen.
A little bit of a Jafar vibe.
He doesn't wear anything to protect him from the radiation.
Doesn't need it. He's got a Fu Manchu.
And an earring.
I was thinking it was just the evil.
Too cool.
The evil's like his suit.
Oh,
well, that too, metaphorically, but physically, I think it's the earring.
Earring of power. We need to create a superhero whose earring is the source of his power, and that's why he's so cool.
Mr. Clean.
Oh, yeah, I guess he is.
Doesn't he have
He's
an
in the
earring?
Marvel universe.
He does,
right.
I think.
You guys ever thought about having an earring?
No,
I know that you've never had one.
Never once
But has
in
it
my life.
never popped into your mind?
No.
Even when it was a thing that you could do and it looked cool, I don't think I could pull it off.
No, I've never thought about a piercing for some reason.
No.
Not my thing.
And not for any reason other than that. If I thought there was a way that I could pull that off, I think I would. But there is not a way.
Are you worried that people might be like, what's up, Metal Mouth?
Oh, yeah, or steel schnoz. If I had one in my nose.
I will tell you a brief family backstory we haven't gotten into, which I don't know if I've told anyone this. Oh my God, that's huge.
It's about that toilet.
No, I'll never get the answer to that. No, so one time when I was like 12 and my sister was 16, she came home some random day. I think she'd been gone overnight somewhere. It was like a Saturday. Came home in the middle of the day. We were all in the kitchen, me and my mom and dad, and she just burst in there smiling with a surprise nose piercing.
Oh,
that she didn't tell anyone she was going to do, and it did not go over well
And
at
she
all.
probably knew that was going to start
She
some
did.
shit.
She gave him that shit-eating grin like, it's too late now.
What
It's
are you
already
gonna do
on
about
here.
It? There's a hole in my face.
It wasn't good. My mom told her she used to be pretty.
Oh, shit.
But
Burn.
she wasn't anymore.
How did you feel about it?
I told her she looked stupid.
But that may just have been a child
I
reaction.
was 12. It's
Yeah,
my older
exactly.
sister. Whatever she does is bad. But yeah, I think it grew on me pretty quick. And I told her later, I was like, it's not really that big or anything.
Yeah, because in general, at 12, You probably thought nose rings were pretty cool. I did. I was like, people with nose rings are probably cool.
I don't think the negative association with piercings pierced our generation, so to speak. I think we were all cool with it. It's really the boomers who did all that stuff.
Yeah, they're like, don't come in here all with a bunch of metal sticking out your bones and a bunch of markings on your arms. That's what boomers like to stay.
Instead, you need to go home every night and get blackout drunk and be mean to everyone.
Don't have your memories and pain tattooed on your body. Beat it into someone else. I'd vote for Reagan again if I could. Forrest Gump was real.
Didn't expect to get into a boomer discussion here, but that's what happened.
I did write in my notes, this cool fucking guy with an earring and a Fu Manchu.
Yeah.
I'm on board.
He did have a suit that felt very 90s to me, and that the shoulders were still there. Because in the 90s, we still had a bit of shoulder pad overkill that hadn't died off from the 80s yet.
So this is clearly a transaction with whatever the radioactive waste deal is. It's a bunch of people getting in on this evil thing, and a man with a steaming cup of coffee says, hey, henchman, hurry up, make it snappy. There's only 20 minutes before the next harbor patrol. Batman's watching all this secretly, by the way, from a hiding spot, and he actually goes into like a stealth mode that he has on his suit. He can hit and just be almost invisible, but not really. And they're kind of going about their business when all of a sudden he goes in the offensive. He starts attacking bad guys from all angles. The music does what it does in this, which is just kick into high gear and make a really important scene even more important.
There's a whole lot of going on.
There is a sea captain type character who I was hoping would have a more prominent role, but doesn't.
He's the one with the coffee.
That's the coffee cup guy. I didn't really get who everyone was. I'm guessing basically the sea workers were in on this too, right? Like I got that it was collusion between the sea and the thugs.
Between the sea.
Arr, it's a wild day at the
Poseidon himself came up and was like, give me my cut.
I wish I was hard enough to be a docksman, I'm not though.
No,
oh
you
my
don't.
God, I'm not.
You'd get one fish thrown at you and you'd be like, I'm done.
Like,
that's what I'm
the
saying.
Life of a docksman.
That's the whole thing, I think, is the ocean throws fish at you and beckons you to dive into it.
So I didn't put down specifics here, but Batman beats everyone up. And he's lots of kicking and he's flying around. And
every episode has about 3 scenes that are just nonsense PlayStation 1 music, and then all of a sudden, and it's 2 minutes.
People getting beat up. The scheme is not going to happen. Batman's foiled that real good. He's hurling a radioactive crate at the henchman leader, which seems like a bad idea. The driver of the truck at this point is like, fuck this, I'm getting out of here. And he tries to leave, but there's a grappling hook or something connected to the back of the truck. And that just runs out of slack, so it pulls the entire back of the truck off, and the truck falls apart and stops. And Batman, at this point, I guess, sensing the truck's not going anywhere, takes the time to approach the main henchman and says, who hired you? Henchman says, I'm not going to tell you. Batman doesn't care because that guy has a breast pocket cell phone that's really obvious, and he just picks it up. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to figure out who this is with your phone. He dials the number. And now we cut to a different scene, which is the middle of an important evil business meeting. The man we will soon learn is Derek Powers, is seated at an evil conference table with a group of nervous executives who just want to call it a night.
Derek's probably going to give him a fair deal.
Oh, surely. He's not going to swindle them. Don't be that way.
That's what he's known for, is being fair to everyone. So the executives are like, Mr. Powers, it's late. Can we just go home? We'll talk about this later. Mr. Powers says, my buyout offer is on the table. If you leave this room, it's withdrawn. So the executives nervously discuss this ultimatum with their lawyer, and then Powers' phone rings. That brings us right back to where that last scene ended and this one began, because it's Batman on the other end of the line. And boy, does he have a killer greeting lined up.
Amazing the numbers people put on their speed dial.
Fuck, Mr. Powers is done for.
And weirdly, Mr. Powers does not first reply, young man, can I speak to your father?
Or
that's the problem, is like, how is that supposed to be scary?
Or what he should have said is speed dial. This is like 2060.
Seriously. And
it's 2019.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
So that's when the show started, but I think this is already a little bit deeper into the show's lore. But you're right, that's the first year.
We don't have speed dial.
I think it's 2040 by the time these happen, because Bruce Wayne's like 70 now. He's 50.
2019 was very funny to me.
That is perfect.
Especially because of what we know happens in 2020.
Right.
Oh, the world has all these made up problems.
I feel like we may have discussed this recently, but speed dial is not something I think people know. Like, I don't think that makes sense to a person who hasn't used a landline phone.
It's not something that really appeared in my life, hardly.
Yeah,
Like, it was just a blip.
I think it was like one of those last technologies that landlines were like, this is cool. And then they were like, I don't want a landline.
We were young enough to have landlines. We didn't have people to call, so we wouldn't have people on speed dial.
Yeah, speed dial, I guess, would be like, I don't know, you put it in your, what's that little thing? Your
Rolodex?
Yeah, where you had numbers and you spun it around and you're like, oh, I'm going to call number 3.
Yeah, I think the idea also is like the speed dial would contain a lot of emergency numbers to expedite that process. But the thing is, what if one's not in there? Or you're going through your fucking Rolodex, pest control, and then you're calling the number 1 rotary pole by rotary pole. By the time you've done that, whoever's in trouble's dead.
It's all just a very ineffective scene. The general premise of Batman trying to scare this really evil guy who's about to buy, I don't know, some kind of large company.
He's also huge and green and electric.
Yep. Well, we soon learned about this because as soon as Batman tells Derek Powers that his toxic waste delivery didn't go as expected and the goons are the only things being shipped out to sea tonight, wish he'd go with them. So Powers is irate at this point, and this is where we figure out he's got a little bit of a fatal flaw, which is that he leaks toxic waste at some point. You might think here that it's because he's mad, but apparently his skin is fake and it gives out by the end of the day.
The problem where his eyeballs explode, that's bad too.
He's got
I
some
wouldn't
problems.
want that at all.
His assistant says to him, "Sir, your eyes. You seem to have drank too much Surge."
If I were to see that, I would say, sir, I'm dialing 911.
The thing that was noteworthy about that in this scene is how when he does hang up angrily with his eyes leaking radioactive goo, and I just put in my notes, his assistant informs him, this is very visible because you can see his eyes aren't quite right at this point.
He can remedy this, though.
Well, he has to confirm it in the mirror real fast first. He's like, what's she talking about? Is this true? And
Mirror,
then he's like, yeah.
on the wall, who's the meltiest of them all?
He sees, yes, okay, she's right. There's goo coming out of my eyes. And he smoothly disguises this with a pair of sunglasses. Decides that this will be the way he can face his executives. But he's a sensible man. He realizes I probably can't just sit here for hours with sunglasses on, and decides, you know what, guys? You go ahead and fuck off. You go ahead and get some sleep for the night. I'm feeling more generous than I thought I was, so we'll discuss this later. And he sends the executives away. Well, I love talking about Batman, but I need to get some water and hydrate so we can do just as much talking about Batman when we come back. In the next scene, Powers is sitting in a lab chair and allowing himself to be analyzed by some fancy science contraption that's going to tell everyone what's going on with his melty, radioactive skin. Apparently, he already knows the results because he says, it's useless, it barely lasts a day anymore. He's furious and he demands to know, what am I even paying you guys for?
Every time you say you're a weird electric man.
And then he just rips his chest off. He just rips his skin off and underneath a glowing set of rib cage bones, and he's just glowing underneath his skin.
Hulkamania.
He doesn't want his skin on anymore, so he just tears it all off angrily. The scientists tell Powers, it's not the skin, bro, it's you. The radiation levels are growing in strength, and the skin can't contain it anymore. No one has a solution that satisfies Powers because he likes to blame people. He's mad. But then Dr. Stephanie Lake walks in. She's got an idea.
Struts her ass in there.
To the objection of everyone in the room who's like, she's new, don't listen to her, she's a woman, she's dumb. Stephanie tells Powers she may have just the thing for him.
And at this point, you don't know what that really means. You don't think, it's probably some sort of necromancy type deal. But it is.
Using his baseline DNA to build him an entirely new body, then transfer his neural patterns into it. It's a real good job of trying to make that sound like it's a sciencey thing could be done.
But it's kind of necromancy.
It is. Yeah, you're just transferring consciousness into a corpse.
A new body, one that can withstand my urge for Surge?
No body is that powerful.
So Power loves this plan immediately. But Stephanie's like, hold on though. We need to do a trial first to make sure it works. Is there anyone else who has systemically damaged DNA?
Do we have any heads in cold storage?
Are there any other weird half supervillains laying around?
Well, cut to a disembodied Mr. Freeze, who informs Stephanie in his little jar that his head is, that he's been in this state for almost 50 years now. And even though he's kind of been stuck here forever, there's a bright side, which is he hasn't aged a day in those 50 years. He's gotten immortality, and yet he's not happy.
He is pretty chatty, though. I'll give him that.
He's got a lot to say.
You've been sitting in cold storage for 50 years. You talk to
and you're just a gray head.
He says, even though I'm immortal in this thing, I can't stop obsessing over death. Dr. Stephanie Lake says, you know what? You should get a body.
She's basically like, shut up. I'll go find it.
She doesn't at all indulge him in that. She's like, why don't we just put you in a body? That'll stop all that.
Wait a minute. This has been an option?
Well,
I've been here 50 years.
At first he says, no. He even makes the angel of death from...
Yes.
He goes, He doesn't want to do that.
We're about to enter the part of my notes labeled casually body X-fur.
Stephanie wins him over by saying, an incredible mind like yours deserves a body.
It does soften him up a bit. He's like, you think that?
It's exactly what I put. I said Freeze softens. Clearly won over. She does. She softens. She butters him right up.
Well, in this case, she might have left him on the counter for a little bit to soften. He's usually very cold.
He's frozen.
He's a real ice sore.
When in doubt, you can just use ice for whatever you're going to say.
You know who Mr. Freeze's favorite actor is?
Vanilla Ice?
No, Raymond
It's not an
Burr.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good.
Yes,
I
he
like
is.
that.
He was in Cool as Ice, the Vanilla Ice movie.
That's true. Probably the only thing he was in.
Well, you cut straight to the operation. With the corpse of a giant bald man lying on an operation table.
Where'd they get this?
He's just some guy that died.
Huh.
The disembodied Mr. Freeze is positioned just next to it. And Powers and Stephanie are standing cheerfully next to the disembodied Mr. Freeze. And Powers says, hey, don't worry. We worked hard. It's gonna be great. Like, this operation, I don't want you to worry about a thing. Freeze shuts that shit down in a way you've always wished you could.
Save your breath. I am neither afraid nor capable of being comforted by your banal words.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I would probably just cry if someone said that to me.
I labeled that clip Mr. Freeze the Bummer.
That's actually the sort of thing I say at work when someone says good job.
Your banal praise is nothing to Brian Vaughn.
I care nothing for your corporate compliments. I realized it was getting very JFK or something.
I was thinking a little more FDR, but we're in that range.
Right.
So the operation proceeds and Freeze screams in pain, only for a moment though, because the next time we see him, he's been transported right into that giant corpse. And now it's a corpse no more. Powers and Stephanie look on proudly as we see the snow gently falling through the window in the background, and Freeze in his new body jumps out of the bed, presses his hand to the window, and says, it's cold. It feels cold.
That's his whole thing.
And he gets to feel now. He's no longer just a head. So he knows what he can actually feel a window now. That must be quite a novel concept.
He's got grabbers.
I always am like, I don't even think about window touching. But honestly,
Take it for granted.
it's pretty good, right? It's cold,
Especially-
your hand's not.
It sounds kind of soothing.
Mhm.
Put your hot hand on a cold window.
50 years you've toiled as a head.
And now you have this giant hairless body.
At Hamilton Hill High School, Batman is Terry McGinnis, leaves school for the day with his best gal Dana.
Let's just get this out of the way. Hey, it's Terry McGinnis.
I was so fucking disappointed we didn't get that. Oh, where's the Joker?
So Terry is thirsty for a fizz.
Well, I'll take a fizz.
And probably other stuff those crazy teens get up to when they're alone. But Dana informs him, your keeper's waiting for you. His keeper being Bruce Wayne.
Your old man who follows you around all the time.
I feel like they're keeping this kind of secret, but it is a weird arrangement that would draw attention.
Well, it apparently does, because Dana is definitely like, I have time, you don't. Look at that old mean guy with his scary barking dog. So I guess fizz is, I don't know, it's like a malt or something for
I think
the
it's
future.
drugs.
Oh, could be.
Yeah. Cool kid drugs.
Maybe it's what they call cocaine by 2040.
No, that's death sticks.
I don't want to buy any death sticks. I want to go home and rethink my life.
As apprentice and master walk away together, Bruce hands Terry some kind of fancy futuristic gadget that you can watch the news on, which you just press a button and it plays a clip.
Yeah, it's called an iPod video because it's still huge and heavy, clearly.
It looks like it only does the one thing, too.
But if it's heavy enough, weapon.
Oh, true.
As Terry watches, we as viewers see a video of Powers announcing to a group of, I guess, reporters, they called a press meeting for this, that Mr. Freeze has paid his debt to society and is being set free into the world. thanks to the great medical minds at Wayne-Powers.
Look, he's been a decapitated head for 50 fucking years. I don't know what his crimes were before. He has paid his time.
Let's give him another shot. Now, the fact that he's already plotting is a concern. Another concern is how delicious his name is spelled. The Freeze. It's spelled fries.
Yeah, that's right. The actual one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when he's not Mr. Freeze, it's Victor
Fries.
Freeze. Victor Fries.
Delicious
I'd like,
Victor fries.
I don't know, like a Whopper with some Victor fries.
Whenever I
It's not
played
like fries
softball.
after you won it, something.
Yeah,
Victory
I win a
fries.
softball fight.
What are you doing? What are these games you're playing?
Well, I was fast. You punch him and run away.
I think you're confusing softball with the Muay Thai.
Oh, shit. I always do that. I really wish the Muay Thai would announce me at softball games, though.
No, he never shows up. I've emailed him about it.
Who knows if he knows how to use email?
He's never answered, so I don't think he does. I don't know if he still uses his Hotmail.
Bruce tells Terry to follow Freeze and not let him out of his sight because he doesn't trust him. Terry says, who, Freeze or Mr. Powers? Neither.
Oh, shit.
When somebody asks you either or and it's both, you're supposed to be like, yes. That's what you're supposed to do.
That's true, yeah.
Bruce Wayne really missed that one. In the next scene, we see what Mr. Freeze is up to in his new body. His first order of business appears to be saving a cat, Molly, from getting run over by a futuristic train as she chased after a piece of paper. This proved it right there. Mr. Freeze is good now.
Yeah, he's fine. Let him do what he wants.
Good man, yeah.
I mean, the first act, he saves a cat. It's like, yes, I love you, Mr.
It's
Freeze.
the old screenwriting rule.
What's this family doing with their cat just free running around them?
You've never lived in Gotham. You don't know what it's like, man.
Fair enough.
I'm not sure. I can't speak to what any cat that I've had would do outdoors because it would just be being terrified. But I don't feel like an outdoor cat would be that excited about a piece of paper. I don't think it would run after that thing.
And they have squirrels out there.
Yeah, there's so many other things to look at. But in any case, this cat loves paper and almost got run over by the train, but Mr. Freeze saved it. Batman, he's watching this from a distance and he actually agrees with the three of us. He sees Mr. Freeze save that cat and he's like, well, that's a menace to society.
They get around to this pretty late in the episode, the Bruce versus Terry McGinnis debate over whether or not Mr. Freeze is good or not. And
Oh man, it's so philosophical too. Can a person really change?
yeah, never thought of that one. But this show is for kids. I get annoyed by like that sort of baseline non-thought. But then I have to remember, like, if you're 9, that's cool. Like, that's interesting.
Well, and that was the majority of what Mad Men was about. It's like,
Yeah,
can,
but
can
not-
a
they're
person
not-
change?
Right, but
And it
they're
was
not
done the
saying
same
it
way.
enough.
It was exactly same
Yes.
format. Don Draper saved that cat from the going to the train.
And there's the whole thing about how Batman, he keeps cheating on his wife and like is probably an alcoholic. I mean, not probably, he is an alcoholic. Roger Sterling is kind of the Bruce character in this situation.
We'll
If
have
it's
to do
like
Mad Men at some point.
yeah, it'd be a little more complicated
Little
to
bit.
talk about.
Freeze and Stephanie walk away together. I guess they're friends now, and they're both in great spirits. Sad, wistful piano music plays, and Freeze and Stephanie continue their walk just all over Gotham. They end up at a cemetery. We see a gravestone that says Victor Fries. I'll just go ahead and say that now. On the tombstone. I just said we see a gravestone with Victor Fries on the tombstone.
A gravestone on the tombstone.
What's the difference? Same, interchangeable?
I would assume so.
Oh, well, if it's not a tomb, it can't be a tombstone.
Tombstone's a type of pizza.
Yeah, and it's a movie with Kurt Russell, right?
Val
Yeah.
Isn't he
Kilmer?
in that? Yeah.
And Val Kilmer.
So those are things that tombstones are. Through dialogue, we learn this is the resting place of Freeze's head.
Would you guys go visit the grave of your decapitated head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave maybe some flowers or something?
What's the point of putting it in the grave? I feel like if you've got a whole head to show off, you want that
Yeah, you display
visible.
that.
In
Yeah.
its own jar already.
The funny thing is, though, is that you asked that, and Stephanie actually is like, we didn't really know what else to do with that.
We just kind of dumped it in a hole.
And Victor's like, I'm calling him Victor now, like we're friends. I guess the bodied Mr. Freeze can be Victor.
Yeah.
Well, he says, no, it's perfect. I love it. I'm glad you put my head into the ground.
It is wonderful.
He says this is like, it symbolizes the end of one thing and the beginning of another. I bet you didn't think about that, Dr. Stephanie Lake.
They also named the cemetery Gotham Acres. I don't
That
know
sounds
how
like a
I feel about
retirement
that.
home.
Yeah. Like that's where Batman should
I
be.
guess the cemetery is the ultimate retirement home.
Well, but in Gotham, don't they just throw everyone into that mental facility?
Like Arkham Asylum?
Yeah.
Or the bad people.
Another kind of questionable element of the Batman universe under modern interpretation.
I don't see why Batman doesn't take a shot at rehabilitating the criminally
He
insane.
sure doesn't.
He should get in there and put on like a lab coat and get a clipboard and figure out what's wrong with him.
Watching Batman, I feel very lucky as someone who, has to go to therapy that I have not become a supervillain yet.
Suddenly, a shadowy figure appears in the cemetery, and he's clearly trying to remain hidden behind a tree that's near Stephanie and Mr. Freeze.
Who'd you guys think this was?
I had no idea.
Vigilante ninja, probably someone young and agile.
Definitely someone young and agile. And I also like to point out that there's some kind of suggestion that Freeze and Stephanie are bonding on a deeper level than friendship. It's vague, but it seems to be there that
He just got his body back.
What's he going to do with it?
Yeah.
Well, who's he going to do with it?
Oh,
It is
man.
never before until this moment that I have learned what hot is.
Then you cut to the next scene, and he's sitting on the end of the bed with his head in his hands. He's like, I don't know what happened. I just froze up.
It's been 60 years.
This young, agile shadow whips out what is apparently a fully automatic machine gun and starts firing on Freeze after lining him up in the crosshair. But Batman, having watched the whole thing, goes into action and actually tackles Stephanie and Freeze and saves them from the fire. With the couple saved, Batman then turns on the shooter. He throws a smoke grenade in his vicinity and then flies at him with a crushing kick and stops him with some kind of lasso toy that goes around his legs.
Might have borrowed that from Wonder Woman.
Could have been. It's a
'Cause
lot
they're
like
friends.
that. And it makes the sound when he gets it out like metal. It just, wow.
I think it's a bolus.
Okay.
And I mean that. I think that's what
I
it is.
didn't
Is
know
that
how to
what those
describe
are?
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's weighted too, like it has the little balls on it. So I should have known that, and I didn't. Good job, Van, catching that it's a bolus that Batman's throwing.
It's also not entirely dissimilar from those desk toys that clack together.
Oh,
No,
the
it
perpetual
does look
motion
like
thing?
that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So foiled, the attacker starts pleading with Batman, saying, no, the monster's got to die. He's got to die. Batman rips his ninja hood off, and we see an elderly man underneath. Just this normal old guy.
Who was doing some really impressive moves in this graveyard for a man who is, I'm going to say, graciously 85.
Odd choice. We'll never understand why. It's not like it becomes clear later.
Immediately, it makes me feel bad for him.
Yeah. And I mean, especially because the first thing he says when Batman rips his hood off is, how could you save him after what he's done to me? He's a victim.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, he probably figures I'm about dead anyway. I'm just going to go in there and
This will be
try
the
to
last
take
thing
him out.
I do
Yeah.
before I go. So Freeze approaches with Stephanie and asks the man, what did I do?
The way he says it, he goes like, what did I do?
He doesn't remember. The man says Freeze destroyed his life and his family. Years ago, he just froze everyone.
Froze him good.
Batman says, well, you know what, Mr. Freeze, Victor, we'll let the police come and take care of this piece of shit. Freeze says, no, I've wronged him enough. And then
I'm a good guy.
he unties the bolus, which I did put in my notes.
Oh, nice.
No, I didn't. I was just pretending I knew what it was all along. I didn't. He unties the rope from the man's legs, freeing him before extending a lengthy apology. It's like 2 minutes about, I could never possibly fully apologize for the horrible things I've done, but I am new and changed, and I'm going to fix all of that and everything as best as I can. And the old guy just kind of looks at him and runs away.
Probably didn't realize Batman was a little boy.
That's also probably a jarring revelation.
Yeah.
So in the next scene, Freeze is doing a TV interview about starting the Nora Freeze Foundation, which he'll be funding with his own legitimate earnings that have been in a blind trust all the time he was ahead. I guess it's been an upturn in the economic situation and is worth $500 million now.
What's Bruce think about this? Does he think this is a charitable act?
Well, he thinks it's blood money. The Wayne Cave is where Bruce and Terry are watching this very interview, and that is what Bruce says about it. Although Mr. Freeze makes it sound like it's not charity, it's justice, Bruce says no, it's blood money. Terry says, you know what, he's a good guy now. I met him personally and I love him. Bruce isn't buying it one bit. He says, you're young. You don't know. Back at the studio, the interview is wrapping up. Mr. Freeze departs and says, hey, it's kind of hot in here. I'm sweating bullets. And
Sweaty and hot.
the interviewer tells him, it's the studio lights. It's always like that. And they say we don't work very hard. Something about interviewers being, I guess, entitled jerks or something.
I guess it seems like a very specific thing that
Let's poke fun at media journalists and say they're all vapid. It's kind of what it seemed like.
it's like a joke that no one needs to know or hear about.
And yet, even when Freeze leaves the studio and walks through Gotham, he can't stop sweating. It's not just the studio lights. It doesn't matter how many layers of clothes he takes off, or even actually when it starts to snow a little bit, he's still hot.
Look, we know this is supposed to be him reverting back to Mr. Freeze or whatever. But to be honest, I think it's just a normal man of his age at any day that's above like 65.
Might be whatever happens in True Detective. Also, we're recovering. It's cold out, but he's taking his clothes off. He's wandering around outside.
Could be. He's going to get in a big pile with some other guys.
Mhm.
He senses something must be wrong, so he stops in at good old Wayne Powers Research for a checkup. Inside, he's waiting at an examination table in his underwear. Stephanie's just outside, ominously on the phone with Mr. Powers, where she says, and I should also mention, we see that the room he's in is at a cozy 35 degrees, which is, I guess, why he's fine in there. Stephanie's telling Powers in there, and there's no doubt about it, he's reverting. So Van was right. Now we know. We didn't know then, though. He's reverting. Powers is incredulous. Stephanie says, well, it must be within his actual DNA. It's not something that we can fix by extracting it and putting it in a different body. It's just part of his DNA. Powers says, well, we should biopsy his organs in this state. Wouldn't that be something? Stephanie says,
Wouldn't that be a trip?
Stephanie says, we can do that. Let's go. I'm going to go do that right now.
I'm going to turn on the heat a little bit.
So she returns to Freeze and immediately seals him in the room, not saying a word while he pleads with her using her first name because they're something now, at least to him. Turns the heat straight up to 91. Freeze is in great pain from this and starts sweating.
I would be too.
Sounds awful.
Well, I guess heaters just work real fast.
In the future, sure. And drops to his knees as Stephanie watches heartlessly. And this is where we learn, we talked about this at the beginning of the episode, that Stephanie's mean.
And I always knew it, but again, I feel that I would be susceptible to her harvesting my organs.
And you can really see Freeze's the betrayal on his face, where he's like, I can't believe Stephanie of all people would do this to me. Somehow, in the midst of his crawling around on the floor sweating, he gets real strong and grabs the examination table and hurls it through the glass, which is quite breakable, which you would think a research center would be mindful of. But in any case, he's loose in Gotham just like that.
I guess we now have answered the question, is Stephanie friend or is she froze?
It made it, but just barely.
The fact that you're trying to keep it up at all this late in the episode it's applause worthy.
You know, when Dr. Freeze is done with her, she'll be a Stephanie skating rink instead of a Stephanie lake.
Oh, it's pretty good.
Because she'll be frozen.
What do you do when your ice house falls apart?
What?
Just to glue it back together.
These are good.
I wonder if our podcast is still good.
After a quick cut to a different scene, Batman's on the phone with Bruce again. He tells him he doesn't think Freeze is a threat, even if he is on the loose. Bruce says, you don't know him. He lives for revenge. He's mean. And meanwhile, Powers and Stephanie have mandated a citywide search for Freeze. There's no sign of him. Stephanie says, you know what? Doesn't matter. I was confused by this, but Stephanie says, we had a heat wave. It hit 70 today. Just snowed a little bit ago, but I don't know. Maybe is it a different location? Did it go from snowing to 70?
We don't know how weather works in the future.
No.
That's possible. In any case, she thinks Freeze, if he's out there, he's dead. I'm sure the heat got him. And suddenly, the group hears loud noises from beneath their feet and large chunks of ice appear through the floor. And not just like inanimate ice that just happened to burst through the floor. It's mean ice.
Big walls of angry, sharp ice.
It's angry, yeah. The ice is trying to get him.
After 200 years of climate change, it's going to get its revenge.
Well, it's Freeze. And he's ready to destroy the whole fucking town now. And Batman sighs to himself as he sees what's happening. And he's like, Freeze. Vic, buddy, don't do this. Having trapped Powers and Stephanie, Freeze appears from the ground in a full villain Mr. Freeze suit. Which, where do you think he was keeping that all this time,
I wondered that same thing.
Cold storage?
Yeah, cold storage. It's a cold joke. Not as good as yours, though.
But it's there. It's up there. Why did they, okay, so they thought, well, what if he reverts to evil? Why did they give him a big buff body then? Couldn't they just find a lesser body?
You got to be buff in these cartoons because everybody's drawn real buff. Look, if your enemy's drawn buff, you're going to ask to get drawn buff.
Fair enough.
You know, the problem with Mr. Freeze in relationships is he just always is giving you the cold shoulder.
He does have huge shoulders, too, so that's a problem.
That's now how I see it.
Oh, yeah.
It's
getting better. I thought it would get worse, but it's getting better. Powers pleads for his life as Freeze chases after him, squirting ice at him. Stephanie tries to stop him. She's like, Victor, no. But then Powers is like, he's talking to her now. I'm going to get out of here because I'm actually bad. And Freeze hits him full on with an Arctic blast.
And it's huge. It probably weighs a tundra.
Stephanie says they were only trying to help him. It wasn't anything evil that they were doing, but Freeze is not feeling merciful. So he gives a little line to Stephanie, repeating what she told him before the procedure that he underwent in the first place about the pain will only be temporary or something. And he just blasts her in the face.
That's his announcement, basically, where he's like, I am now fully a bad guy.
And she's killed, right? That's the assumption.
I think so, yeah.
I'm getting that vibe from Stephanie. So outside it's a police force, but they kind of look like stormtroopers a little bit. They're awaiting him outside as Freeze goes out there after having frozen Stephanie and Powers, and they open fire. But in this suit that he's got, which is like a tank, a frozen tank sort of suit thing, he's invincible, and he doesn't really care about being shot, and he just freezes them all up right there. A police car comes and it gets frozen too.
Okay, and I'm sure it was a police car, but I didn't realize that at first. I thought it was just a car.
I had to watch and see who was in it, and it was a stormtrooper inside
Okay.
of it. So I was like, okay, that's obviously supposed to be a cop car.
Can you imagine
It
just
looked
like
like he
coming
was
home from work and
He's
you
just
get
freezing
frozen?
everything. It doesn't matter what it is.
Honey, I'm going to be late. I got Mr. Freezed again. My long frost friend.
Briefly, in the middle of all this, we see that Powers has unfrozen himself with being radioactive. And that's...
Radioactive.
Oh, no.
God, I hate that song.
I don't know why you had to bring that back into this world.
Who is that? Imagine
Yeah.
Dragons.
One of those, like,
Ugh.
how should I put this? There's no nice way to, I'm not going to say anything.
So that's just a real quick, 3-second scene. And then we're back to Freeze running amok in Gotham. He sealed himself in some sort of power station of the compound, and he informs Batman, who he just happens to know is there hiding. There's enough energy here to destroy the whole compound. You need to find a way out, Batman. Batman acknowledges that he is hiding on the wall in the room and says, oh, come on, Freeze, reconsider. And Freeze says, it doesn't matter what happens, how awful. Whatever I do is going to be awful, but I'm not going to be around afterwards to deal with the aftermath anyway.
Gets to, again, be a big bummer.
When this goes, I go too. And then he's like, okay, Batman, I gave you your chance and you didn't leave. So he freezes him against the wall. And it's right at this moment that Powers reappears, sizzling Freeze with what I wrote down as radioactive zapper power, which he gleefully observes Freeze can feel right through his suit. Bruce asks Batman through the radio, what's going on? I've lost my transmission. I can't see what's going on in here. Powers is all this while christening himself Blight to Freeze. This is my origin story, Mr. Freeze.
Do you think my name is cool? I've stayed up really late thinking of different options. Another one was bad guy, and I thought I needed to be more specific.
I thought Mr. Glowy, but I wasn't as intimidating enough.
The Green Lantern, someone's already got that, and it's one of the good guys.
So he's finishing Freeze off, telling him that he will now be going by Blight, but it's time for him to fight Batman, because that was just the right amount of time for Batman to unstick himself. Bruce, all the while, gets a readout in the cave on his big giant monitor and tells Batman there's something hot in that room.
Probably For Him Magazine's 1999 Sexiest Woman of the Year winner, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah, I bet that's it.
Could have been Stephanie Lake, too, but she's dead.
Yeah, not hot anymore.
The Batman tells Bruce, Blight's like a walking meltdown. And Bruce
Here's
says,
the title of the show.
Whoa.
Title of the show.
Bruce says, keep your distance. Sue can protect you, but not that much.
But probably not.
The Batman and Blight go back at it, a bunch of fighting, just as Blight gets set to dish out 2 full fists of toxic waste. Blast! I'm running out of breath, but it's just such a dramatic scene. Freeze comes to and hits him with his Arctic Blast. And this shoots Blight straight out of the building. He's out
Get
of
it
there.
from Sonic? Isn't that a drink they have?
It is.
The 2 guys would peddle it.
I think they're gone now, right?
They are
Didn't
gone.
we determine that?
Are they
I think
dead?
they decide. No, they're not dead.
not gone.
They're no longer with us. With the whole building coming down around him, Batman approaches Freeze and says, all right, Victor, come on. We got to get out of here.
Yeah, we hit 20 minutes just about.
And Mr. Freeze tells him to chill out.
In a very sad moment, because Batman's trying to save Mr. Freeze. We got to go. Mr. Freeze says, believe me, Terry, Batman, you're the only one who cares. Much to Batman's dismay, he makes no effort to save himself as the building explodes. Kind of just gives up and commits suicide by building.
Oh, yeah, in big teen entertainment martyrdom fashion.
Batman narrowly escapes in time. It's assumed that Freeze did not. Blight's henchmen, meanwhile, have found Blight by using an infrared scanner that they do explain to us. We found you by using an infrared scanner.
Oh, thanks. It is very
That's it.
shoehorned in.
And then they offer him a blanket because he might be cold, and he says, you're stupid, and that's the end of Blight.
I hate you. I'm a bad guy. I don't need blankies.
They're so nice, though. These henchmen are wonderful.
Blight don't need no blankie.
After all this is done and we're kind of wrapping things up, Terry and Bruce are talking about Freeze and whether he changed or didn't change and what becomes of Gotham afterwards. And Terry thinks there's just no way Freeze could have escaped. He's dead. And Bruce says, well, I mean, he's probably dead, but at least he didn't blow up the entire compound like he was talking about and killing hundreds of people. Terry says, yeah, well, I think you were right about Freeze all along. He really was just bad. He's just mean. Bruce says, we were both right. Because, there's some room that Freeze had changed and become a better person, but couldn't quite leave behind that little mean part of him.
Of being a supervillain who's willing to kill, I guess.
But he had also changed, but was still that. He was good and that is the theme we're left with at the end, which really makes you think about quite a bit of things. That is Meltdown.
Yep.
Sure is.
That's Meltdown.
Should we talk about the pros and cons of the episodes?
Oh, okay. Well, I have a feeling that we've already covered the fros, I guess, if we want to continue with that one.
It's going to be a real rocky road if we go down that. It's cold.
Because there's ice cream. Yeah. I mean, I think this is a real ice of life.
Hold on. Let's all hop on the Zamboni before we continue.
Ice versa. I'm
I
done.
don't have anything.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Well, that's okay. I mean, if you ran out right at the end of the episode, that's incredible timing, actually.
Well, I know how to pace myself. Not really. I have to pee.
We've got a whole other episode about Batman Beyond. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Because you see Batman, but did you want to know
what's back there?
What's beyond Batman? What's a little bit further?
Who is that?
What's going on over there?
Is that Bruce?
Does he have a dog now?
Ace, voiced by Frank Welker.
Welker.
Is that his name? Yeah. So anyway, we've got a whole other episode to talk about. So we don't necessarily need to do anything unless you guys have specific Meltdown related thoughts. Anything else about Freeze? I don't know if he comes back in the show later or if he really is dead.
He is really dead.
Did you check?
I looked up the
cool.
Wikipedia.
Well, that's at least bold. At least they stuck by it. They're like, we're killing off Mr. Freeze in this version of Batman's universe.
I'll give him that.
We'll always have the ride at Six Flags.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of sad. He was making a change and then Stephanie betrayed him and he was like, well, if Stephanie won't have me, I'm just going to be evil.
I think he would have become evil anyway because he was getting warm.
You don't think he could have changed? That's true.
So maybe he wouldn't have gotten that far because he was just immediately shown that humanity sucks. But I think he would have gotten there.
And Stephanie is dead. You think?
I think she's dead.
No chance for her.
She's toast.
And Blight, we know.
I guess she's the opposite of toast. She's frozen. You don't freeze bread.
No, she's bread that you're keeping for later.
We know Blight's this is just the beginning for him. He's gonna be wreaking havoc on Gotham for years to come. He'll be a big nemesis for Batman.
Something of a blight on the city, if you will. And you will. He named himself that. He's forcing you to do it.
Blight doesn't work for me. If it was bright, okay, because he's very bright, but he's not like a disease.
Call me Bright.
Bright, yes.
Blight does sound a little benign, kind of like if you just called yourself problem, issue, complication.
Do you guys have any other thoughts specifically of this episode before we wrap it up and come back to Eyewitness next week with Commissioner Barbara Gordon and Batman murdering someone?
I don't think so. I think I kind of brought up my concerns along the way, but my overarching thoughts,
Concerns.
Yeah, they'll be better served for when we've discussed both.
Before we wrap it up, there's some things you need to know about us. If you listened to this episode and thought like, it's really sad this episode's ending and Boob Tube Boys are out of my life.
I need more.
I've got good news for you. We are in the internet. We're part of it.
I've crawled in.
Yeah, we've all been there. We actually have a website. It's bootuinc.com. Brian always likes to say you spell it with boot.
How do I say it?
I don't know what you say.
I just spell it all out. BOTUINC.com.
Well, it's also boot with a U inc. INC, I guess, .com. Anyway, go there.
There's a page for every episode that we write that says little jokes. And it gives you little tidbits about what to look forward to.
It's good stuff. It's really, it's quite a good compilation of content at boobtubeboys.com. We also have some bonus podcast content too, if you want to keep your relationship with us audio based. It's patreon.com/BooTuInc. Everything there is free. You have the ability to donate to us if you believe in our cause.
If you're Bruce Wayne and you're sitting on billions of dollars.
Or if you're Mr. Freeze and you have that $500 million or whatever.
And if Michael Caine wanted to tell someone to donate, what might he say, Van?
On that day, Mr. Patreon listener, I hope that you donate money.
That sounds like him.
Did you know that the Cider House rules? He was in that, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
good.
was in one of the late Jaws movies.
Well, he was Jaws 4, The Revenge.
I needed some money.
He has a quote on that, and I'll get this out here.
It's amazing.
It's brilliant. Someone asked him, have you seen Jaws 4, The Revenge, which is widely regarded as one of the worst movies ever made? And he said, no, but I have seen the house that he built, and it's wonderful.
Okay.
British actors, that's what they do. They're going to be in a lot of good stuff, but if someone will pay them enough, they'll be in anything.
I'll be Austin Powers' dad.
How do you think all those like British theater legends wound up in Harry Potter? I mean, some of those movies are okay, but I don't think they would be leaping at the chance creatively necessarily. But throw a few $1 million at some people who are mostly memorizing entire plays on stages. Yeah, they're going to take it.
Patreon.com/Bootu Inc. That's where all that bonus content is. And you can give us money if you like it, or if you're Michael Caine and you don't like it. Doesn't really matter.
He'd be a cheapskate.
I bet he would. There's also YouTube. You've been there to watch videos. You go there for us if you want to hear our podcast in a different format. So
there's a little waveform on there.
Yeah.
You can see us talk.
And Van is working very hard and diligently to get all thousands of our episodes on there. So that's a process we'll be doing for a while. And we're there. We're there as well. Lastly, but probably firstly, in terms of importance, is if you like us and you're enjoying what you hear, go to your podcast app of your choice. It's iTunes or Spotify or Brian's Pocket Cast thing, I think is what it's called, or whatever it is. Give us a 5-star review. We'll get a tattoo of Michael Caine.
Maybe an icicle.
That sounds cool.
How about Dr. Lake?
I'd be afraid if I saw that on my own body, I would struggle to get through each day.
Well, you got to put it somewhere in the back, so you'll have to look in a mirror to see it.
Yeah, so go there, go to your podcast app of choice and review us and tell us what you like most about what we do, and we'll be sure to keep doing it. It's some kind of incentive to give you.
Like we're circus clowns.
Call to action there. I really like when you say this word, and then
I'll say that
say
word
that a bunch.
Indubitably.
I really like when Van tells all the ice jokes. That's what's going to be the
I do it
review
every
on this
episode.
one.
We're going to be putting those in our Caroline in the City episode.
I mean, for now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because I see an ominous signal in the sky.
Icy?
I see a signal in the sky, and I think that means we all have to don our superhero capes and go out there and solve a crime. Because that would be, he's a detective, right?
Sure.
Let's go do that.